Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium. I've got another Beyond the Card. This is the third in the series. And I know we've made something similar. So this is another box, as you can tell. And there's something very special about this box because it's kind of it's kind of combining a box with the Napkin Fold card. And we've done that a couple of episodes ago or a couple of weeks ago, maybe even months. I don't know at this point. But this is a box, and when you take off the lid, you have this beautiful napkin fold that comes out. And then of course you can put something in there. Now this box isn't particularly large, right? It's not like incredibly deep. You could fit you know, earrings, a necklace, or what was I thinking? A bracelet was, I think, what I was trying to say there. And I think it's just so fantastic. I mean, this is certainly something that will stand the test of time. It is very solid. And all I've used here is, there's 65 pound to actually make the lid, the base, the card, everything. The lid is reinforced on the side, so it is quite durable. So I feel like this should really last. So it could be a nice keepsake for somebody as well. So I decided that maybe move away from the lumberjack for a hot second, because I really have been trying. And we've moved back into the Simply Vintage Rustic Christmas again. So I've got a lot of pieces. We're going with red as our base this time. It is fairly simple. When we break down the elements, we have a lid. We have basically what is the napkin fold card. And then you have the base of the box. So that's how we're going to break things down today. And so I just don't want you to feel that this is overwhelming, because I'm positive once you break things down into little pieces, we just assemble it all at the end. And that's basically how it goes. So before I get started, we'll go through some of the pieces here, and I'm going to move some of this out of the way. Obviously, I've got some things cut already so that you don't have to sit there watching me cut, you know, for hours on end. Okay, so we're going to start off with our red card base, box base, everything. We've got two pieces that are cut at 8 by 8. We're going to have one for the box, one for the napkin fold. And then the third piece is cut at 8 1/8 by 8 1/8. And this is for the lid. The lid always has to be just a touch larger than the other bases. And then the next, we're going to go through some of the designer paper. So you're going to need 4 pieces. Whoops. 4 of these little pieces. And those are 3 7/8 by 3/4. Then we also have 4 pieces of, let's see, those ones are 4 3/4 by 1 3/4. We also are going to need 4 pieces that are 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. And we're going to need 8 pieces that are 1 5/8 by 1 5/8. These two, all of them are going to have to be cut on the diagonal, and that will make all those little triangles that fit into the napkin fold card. We also need a piece, and what I did was I actually am using some of the journaling or cut aparts from this collection, and so this is going to go at the bottom inside. I thought it was kind of cute to have one of these sentiments on the inside, and this is cut at 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. So originally this was a 4 by 4 cut apart, and I just trimmed a little bit off the top, and I don't know if I did the top and the bottom. I think I did 1/16 just to make sure that it stayed center. So that's that. And then we have a lovely, another cut apart, and what I just decided to do was fussy cut all the way around. This is going to be for the lid. And then I use a sticker for the Mary And then I will include, and Bright will also go on the top as well. And again, all of the Merry and Bright is stickers, and I just decided to put the and Bright on red cardstock and just fussy cut around that. Okie dokie. So let's get started. We will go ahead, set all these things aside. If you notice, I did edge my pieces, so that's great, fantastic. So for the box, let's start with the box. So we're going to grab one of our pieces that is 8 by 8. You can grab your scoreboard, scoring tool, ruler, whatever you're using to score stuff. And we're going to score this at 2. And we're going to score it at 6. And then we're going to flip it around and we're going to repeat. So we're going to score at 2 and we're scoring at 6. I should note that I got this idea from Sam Calcutt in the UK. And I believe she said she got it from somebody else. So it's one of those things where, you know, it pops up maybe on Pinterest and then somebody figures out how to do it and away we go. So I'm going to do a little cut here and here because we need to make these tabs in order to get our box all folded. And then we're going to flip it around and do the same thing on the opposite side. So you're just cutting along that score line right to the next score line. And you're good there. And then again, just to make sure that this all folds in nice and neatly, we take a little chunk, just a little triangle off the sides. And that way it just folds in nice and tucks in, and we don't have any bits that are kind of hanging, overhanging. So this doesn't really have to be precision necessarily. I mean, you don't want to take a huge chunk, maybe, you know, 1/8 or so of an inch. Start at the top, work your way to the corner, and then so you end up with something in the long run that looks like this. So these 4 panels on the corners are what you're taking that little bit off. You're not touching the 4 rectangular pieces. That is where these pieces are going to go. So these are the the 3 and, let me look for my 3 3/4 by 1 3/4. So now keep in mind that all of these pieces will be folded up. So if your pattern is directional, you're going to want to keep that in mind. It's not like mine is terribly directional, but there is a direction to it. So if I fold this like that, you want to envision your piece sitting like that. That's how it's going to, this is up. So that's how your piece is going to sit. So you just want to be sure that you are putting them the right side up. So I'm just going to apply these really quickly and I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces adhered. I'm going to just quickly go over, we're going to need to get our bone folder out. And there's not a whole lot of tools needed. Obviously we need some cardstock. It does make it easier if you have a scoreboard, but that's not essential. In fact, when we get to the point where we're making the card, there's just a super fantastic way of putting together that napkin fold card that does not require a bone folder, which kind of blew my mind a little bit, or not a bone folder, that doesn't require a scoreboard. And it's simply fantastic. So I will be showing that to you as well. And again, before we start assembling this and making our box, I'm going to take my piece that is designed to go on the inside, and I'm just going to apply that really quickly. I did it, that was my last step the first time I made the box, and it was a whole lot challenging to get that piece in there the way I wanted it to. So it was something that I had to make a note for myself. Definitely do this part now. So you'll learn. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to, on these corner flaps, we're going to apply our glue, fold it inwards a little bit, apply our glue. Okay, like that. We're going to fold that up, meet the corners, and then you can just pick it up and just make sure that that corner is really nice and crisp and everything is all glued in as it should. If you wanted to, you could always lay that down like this and use your bone folder to make sure that all the glue gets spread out accordingly. So we're going to repeat that on all four corners, and I'll be back in just a sec. One thing I did want to mention right here is when you're putting together your corners and doing all the flaps, make sure that this last one is tucked in. It's really difficult to get it tucked in after the fact. So we want to make sure, obviously be careful when you're applying your glue because you're applying your glue on the inside of your box. But we want to just make sure though that you don't get glue all over the place, and I made that mistake as well. So I'm just imparting these words of wisdom, having learned from my mistakes that it was a little challenging to get that little flap in there after the fact. So there we go. Easy peasy, right? So now our box is done. We're going to set that aside. Make sure my pin goes in my glue so I don't have some issues later. The next step is we are going to grab another one of our 8x8 and we are going to be doing our napkin fold. So the key for the napkin fold, which completely blew my mind. So we are going to take a ruler, right? And we're going to mark at 4 inches at the bottom. We're going to mark at 4 inches at the top. Make sure that's as square as that can be. You can do this with a pencil. I'm not, because I don't know where my pencil is. So we're going to do that at 4 and then at 4. So you're going to have a little tick mark on all 4 sides. And then we're going to bring this, actually what I'm going to do is go something like this. So this very interesting ruler. So you're going to want to put your ruler next to these tick marks, right? Because we're going to be basically coming to the middle and doing a little tick mark in the middle. So what's nice about this ruler, it centers things. So you've got one side where I've got 0 right here, and I put 4 at the top, line that up with the top part, and I put 4 at the bottom. And so it tells me exactly where the 0, where the middle is going to be. So I'm going to just put a little line there. And then I turn it around and I do the exact same thing. Now you don't have to have this ruler in order to make this work. You can do it with any other ruler, basically. You're just lining up your tick marks, right? And then you're going to make a line. Again, this is where a pencil comes in handy. You make a line right where you think it's going to intersect, because you want to get a little cross in the middle, and that's going to indicate where your center point is. And that will become extremely handy for the next part. So here's what we're going to do. No scoreboards this time. So we're going to fold up the bottom, and again, we're putting that right to the line, making sure that each side is all lined up, that our sides are fine, and then we're going to press that down like that. Okay, so we've got our first line. We're going to go around our cardstock and we're going to be doing this on all 4 sides. I was just simply blown away because this really does make the whole process so much more easy. And I was really shocked that this could be, well, not shocked that it could be done without a scoreboard. I mean, everything that is scored can be done without a scoreboard. It sometimes is a little bit more challenging, but this is actually, I found, far easier without it. Okay, so now that we've got all of our straight lines done, now we're going to do the corners. So remember, we got to put the corner. So now you've actually got a little pocket, so to speak. You're putting the tip of your paper and you're putting that right in where the little pocket is for your T on your plus sign. So at the bottom part, I'm going to raise this up and see if I can show this to you a little bit more closely. So you'll see here that I've got the tip right in that little pocket, and at the bottom is where that fold, the 2 fold lines intersect, and then you'll see that the fold line carries on either way in a very straight line. So that is all the things that you want to keep in mind when you're making this fold. You don't want anything overlapping, and you just want things to kind of line up, you know, the way they should. And again, we're just going to go around and do this to all 4 sides. Okay, and the last one. The last one is kind of the easiest one. It's like, well, there's only so much, you only have so much space to play with at this point. So, all right, so now we have all of our folds done, and now we can get it into that, do some origami and get that into the placement where it needs to go. So, okay, so to start off, we're going to push this center triangle. We're going to push that inwards. We're going to fold, this line is going to get folded backwards, and this gets pushed in as well. For some reason it is, there we go. Okay, so we have 2 fold lines. These 2 diagonals are going to meet up, and then we have a little square, and then we're just going to fold that down, press that down, and we're going to continue on. So we are going to push this side, not wanting to really work with me. So push that side down, then we're going to meet the 2 fold lines together and make our little square. And again, burnish that down, whether it's your fingers or you get your bone folder. All right, so this fold back, this folds, and now we get to the very end, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge because you're kind of having to do 2 pieces all at once, right? So those. And then this last one, you just need to get that folded. Nice. Okay, so this part is done. I'm actually going to take my bone folder because these really need to be crisp, and you've got a lot of layers now that are all kind of fighting to open all at once. So there. Now the last step in making all these fancy folds is folding back the little points to each of the squares, and you're folding it back on itself and burnishing with your fingers or your bone folder. Probably will come back with my bone folder. Get that nice and crisp. And you see it is already taking the shape of said napkin fold. Okay, so just come back and again, make sure all these lines are burnished. Excellent. Okay, so something that we obviously did not do when we were making our napkin fold card is we need to cut the bottom. Sorry, I had to take a little bit of water. It's really dry. Okay, so now we're going to have to go from corner to corner. If you have a craft knife, a scoring knife, not scoring knife, I don't know what else these are called. This is an X-Acto. So if you have one of those, that is fantastic. I, again, don't really know where my self-healing mat is, but do make sure that you're not doing it on your best table, that you have some kind of protection. Cutting boards work really well. If you have a self-healing mat, even better. Some layers of, you know, cardstock, not cardstock, because that can go through it really quickly. This is just kind of like one of those boards that's in between all those layers of cardstock, the solid stuff that you get at the store. So that's what I'm using today. So you're going to go from corner to corner, going right through the X that you have drawn. And we are just going to simply go from corner to corner and slice the cardstock. You may have to go through it more than once. I don't know that this is necessarily the sharpest blade. Clearly it's not. Okay, but just go do a couple passes, making sure that we are getting this all the way through. Yep, so now you have a little pocket, but we're going to do the same thing going the opposite way. So flip over your page and carefully. I'm not necessarily pushing right against the ruler, so there's no fear that my ruler is going to move. I am just simply using it as a guide, and then I can lift it up. So now we're going to have we're going to have 4 triangles, and that is actually what sits on the inside. So you're going to want to fold these back. This is what sits on the inside of the box and attaches this amazing napkin fold to the box. So realistically, it wasn't as complicated, although I'm really glad that somebody figured this out for me and has shared it with everybody, because that does come in handy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to finish cutting these squares on the diagonal. I'm going to do a little bit of edging. I'm going to ink these edges that I just cut. And then, as you probably saw in the video where I did the napkin fold card, now all of these triangles that you've done, that you've created with the folding, that's where all of these pieces, this beautiful designer paper pieces, that's where they go. So the larger ones go on these center triangles, and all of the smaller ones will go all the way around the outside. So was something I should have probably mentioned before. You can do the center, these large ones can be a completely different pattern than the small ones. It's whatever you like. You can do a combination. I've done that in the past. It looks gorgeous. I've also seen it where this base, all the bases were done in designer paper with solid on the top. And while that looks gorgeous, I just can't bring myself to, I was going to do that this time. I can't bring myself to actually cover up all that designer paper. So that was just me. So I'm going to start adhering these pieces, and I will be right back with you in moments. Okay, all of our pieces are now glued down, so we are good to go, and we're going to set this piece aside, and we're going to build our lid next. Only have one more piece of paper left. That should be the 8 1/8 by 8 1/8. We're going to get out our scoreboard or your ruler and bone folder, and we're going to do the following scores. We're going to do it across the top. We're going to turn it 90 degrees, and then we're going to continue on. So we're going to do 1 inch, 2 inch, 6 1/8, and 7 1/8. So now we're turning it 90 degrees, and we're going to continue doing the same scores. So 1 inch, then 2 inch, 6 1/8, and 7 1/8. And this way you would develop this grid or grid pattern, I guess, kind of. And we are going to do some cutting. So holding your page like this, what we are going to want to cut away are basically these 3 squares, okay? So the first cut that I'm going to make, though, is going to go past the first score line right to the second. And then from here, I'm going to cut away these 2 squares. So just cutting to the first score line. And then we are going to cut that. So we're left with this square. But I should have actually cut all the way to the second score line, because we need this square to be a flap. And then we're going to repeat what we did for the box, and that's just miter these 2 sides. So we are just cutting away parts of the actual flap, not the rectangles next to them. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this with this side. So we're going to go all the way to the second, all the way to the second. We're cutting away these 2 squares, and then we're cutting away that 1 square. And then again, miter this square. Just like that. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this on the other side, and I'll be right back. Okay, so your end result should look something like this. I'm just going to remove all these pieces. Okay, so what we're going to do next is just fold all of these. You want to fold, burnish all of these lines, the score lines that you've created. And this is basically what is going to reinforce this lid. Is now you're going to have one piece that folds in, and we're going to glue that down, and then that folds upwards, and these little tabs go on the inside. So that's really what makes it a reinforced box lid, and it's fantastic. It's just a little bit of fantastic, and it's an extra step. I mean, it doesn't require a whole lot of extra time or effort, so why not? If it means the box is going to last that much longer, then why not? People like to keep those kind of things. So, okay. So how we're going to do this now is we're going to do our little tabs first, just like we did on the box. So we're going to put our glue on the tab. We're going to fold that in and have that placed right like so. So with the liquid glue, you can kind of maneuver that a little bit if you, just to make sure that your corner is all lined up properly. You can move your bone folder and spread the glue around a little bit. I'm going to do that to this side as well. And again, fold that up. Make sure those two corners meet. The glue needs some time to, you know, get all happy and make sure those sides are all glued together. And we have a couple of more, the other side to do really quickly. I'm gonna fold that up. Oh, I wanna make sure that that last tab is on the inside and not on the outside, because that makes it a little bit more challenging. Really what I should have done now, that I'm just realizing as we're putting this together, is those strips should have gone on the paper, but they're not large, they're not, you know, it's not terrible to have to maneuver those into place, so that will be fine. And we have our last little tab going in. Making sure that that's all adhered. And then your next step is on the inside of these flaps. So I'm just going to fold that back really quickly so they're out of the way. Whoops. Obviously that wasn't quite as dry as I thought it was. So you're going to apply glue on the inside, and then we're going to fold this over, and then it's going to fold onto itself, just like that. Okay, and we're going to continue that all the way around. Again, you can move that on its side so you can use your bone folder to make sure that's all pressed down. And continue that on the other two sides, last two sides. You could always miter these as well. I just, on the two boxes that I've done, I've not seen the need to do that, so I haven't. But you can definitely just take a little bit off of either side if that makes you more comfortable and sure of the placement, then that is completely fine. Come on. There we go. Excellent. And then we are in the home stretch now. Okay, so that is your lid. I'm going to quickly put on these side panels. Get that, wiggle that into place. We can just lay that down, put a little pressure, and you're good to go. Okay, we're going to keep on moving around till all four sides are covered, and then we get to do kind of like our final assembly. We do have our top piece to put on as well. And the more I look, I think I'm going to want to cut a white piece of cardstock to go between my lid and that top little cut apart that I fussy cut, and just to give it a little bit of contrast, because the reds are not exactly, you know, spot on. So I think I need to have that little bit of a barrier between the two. So I'm going to cut myself a little piece of white cardstock that is going to measure the same as the inside box bottom that we put on. So that is going to be a little piece of 3 7/8 by 3 7/8, and that should fit in nicely. Okay, this last piece is just being difficult. There we go. Okay. Alrighty, brew. So just before I go too much further, I'm just going to grab my paper trimmer really quickly and get a piece of white cardstock out of my scraps. Anything that I cut, I usually just toss. I have a box right to the side of me, and anything that gets cut, if it's 8.5 by 11 and gets cut, doesn't matter. It goes in the box, even if it's just one little tiny cut. That way I know I keep all of the pieces that have been cut, you know, that way I keep them separate from everything that hasn't. And then this way I don't have to measure before I start cutting something, or if I'm working on a project and I need 12 by 12, if I reach for a sheet of paper that should be 12 by 12, it will be 12 by 12. I don't have to go ahead and measure that again. So I'm just inking up the edge because I've done that for absolutely everything on this project. We'll stick that down like that. Then I believe this will go right like this. Ooh, it lines up perfectly. Makes me so happy when a plan comes together. Perfect. So I love these boxes. I don't know what I'm going to be using them for. Again, I'm just going to push that down on the opposite side. But I definitely am going to be using these. This was such a cool idea. I love the Napkin Fold card. So this just takes your box making to the next level, because now you're incorporating a kind of a card with a box that you can put some lovely treats inside. And maybe that's all you're using. Well, that's not quite center. Yeah, but if I move it down any further, the leaves are going to be kind of off. So I think I'm going to leave it like that. I like that. I like it a lot. And of course, a little bit of foam for these tiny words. Give them some height. Give it some dimension. Because now we're done with our lid, basically. So I'm going to do Mary and Bright. Just like that. Really, really simple. If you get a collection ever that you don't have any ephemera bits, stickers work amazingly well. If you can just put it on some cardstock, and depending on what the sticker is, so if this had been darker, I probably would have done a white matte and then fussy cut around. But because this was, the words were dark with a white background, matting them on white probably wouldn't have been the best choice. So I went with something that was very colorful so it stands out. Obviously it stands up, and then I may come back and put further embellishments on it, but I really like it the way it is. So now we're putting together, bringing everything together. So what you're going to do here is these 4 pieces that have been cut, these are going to adhere to the sides of your box. So if I open this box, it's already been done, and can give you a bit of a peek inside. So you see how all of the inside, that is what's holding that on to the box. And then, so this is what we're going to do. You can go, because they're nice and folded, you could go one at a time. So there's no need to put your glue on all of the 4 pieces. Then you've got to manage now glue pieces that are flipping and flapping and flopping all over the place. You just want to have this sitting on top of the box, right? So everywhere is kind of folded in. You want to fold in the opposite sides as well, just to make sure that you're completely squared up. Okay, and then I'm just going to go around, flip that up, apply my glue, and then fold it down, giving that some good pressure, making sure that it's adhered nicely. So flip up, glue, and fold over. And the last panel, so we are almost done. See, when you break down its elements, it really is not that difficult. And I know that you agree with me. So now the next, I guess, and maybe most challenging is to get this folded all the way back in. So we are pushing in these large triangles, and then you want everything else just to kind of collapse in. And it will, once it stays in this form, you'll see even with this one, as soon as I open it, it doesn't necessarily automatically like pop out. It's kind of trained to go in. So you have to pull it out. So there we have it. We have our Napkin Fold gift box. Amazing little thing. And hopefully you'll find a use for it this Christmas season. Fill it with all kinds of goodies. I'd really love to see it if you make it. So head on over to our Facebook page. It's Fabulous Paper Emporium. Give us a like. That would be fantastic. This way, if you're following us, you'll see all the news that we have coming to you, all the new product that comes in, and share your masterpiece with us, because I'd really love to see it. And so voila, our Beyond the Card number 3. We have a few more that are going to be coming up, and I hope you are going to give us a big old thumbs up. Hopefully you've liked this video and you found it useful. If you do, don't forget to hit subscribe as well, and this way you won't forget, this way you won't miss any future videos. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to spending time with you again later. Have a great day. Stay safe. Stay well. Bye.